Yeah, but had you told me that learning camera angles and lighting and all of these other aspects of video were going to be 10 times harder than recording instruments, live music, and mixing all that, I probably would have just prayed harder for Mike Rood and forgone this little project altogether. That's about the easiest thing in the world to do, right? Yeah. Roll it. Greetings and welcome to the inaugural episode of Time for Truth. I'm JC Williams, and I gotta tell you, I am so happy that you're here and that we've been able to get this thing on the road and finally launched. As I mentioned in our intro there, this has been an entirely new process. You know, I come from the world of music and musicians, and I can make a decent room recording with a Radio Shack microphone and a boombox. But this is an entirely different thing altogether. And it took quite a bit of time to get things figured out. And then there's still some elements that need to be improved upon as well. But going forward, we'll get those taken care of. So in this episode, in our primer, we're going to get you lined out primarily what we're doing here, with the way that we approach things is going to be very different than what you get normally at your local house of worship, regardless of what denomination or non-denomination that it may consider itself to be. The best way to think of this right off the bat is if you know anything about lines and distances, and I did surveying for a number of years, but if you start at a point and you're setting a line with your gun, shooting that, and let's say that your angle gets off by like 1 second, the farther you go down, like a mile later down the road, right? That line is going to be 10 feet off, if not more, on either way, to the right or to the left. And that's what's happened to our faith. And in the last decade of the previous century, people were starting to question things and to approach this faith from more of a scholarship point of view than a traditional view. And so about a decade ago, I would say, at that point, the baseline of this faith had been reestablished. The biblical Hebrew calendar had been reestablished. That plays a crucial role in everything. Basically, you know, it's the difference between drinking, like picking up a can of soda that's been sitting in the fridge for who knows how long. It's open, you take a drink and it's flat, versus a brand new fresh can of ice cold Coca-Cola, take a drink and it's just wonderful and refreshing. And that's what this is now. You know, we're doing this from the perspective of where it all began, which is in the context, the historical and cultural context of Hebraic society and the religious practices of that time. Now, don't confuse that with me saying that we're going to be going into full-blown Judaism. No, we're not doing that. Even Yeshua, or if you prefer his Greek handle, Jesus, he wasn't having any of that either. They had done the same thing that humans always do. They corrupt everything. It's all about power, security, and the truth just becomes a casualty. So in this program, A Time for Truth, not only are we going to get you your footing, but I'm also going to introduce you to some other ministries and people that you're going to want to check out so that you too can start this journey and have something that is just so much richer than anything that you may have right now. Especially if you've been at this a while and you feel like you've hit the wall, you haven't lost any of your faith or any of your drive or ambition to pursue that, but basically you've kind of come to the end of the learning trail according to whatever organization, house of worship you belong to, and there's more to it than that. Well, that's what this is. This is an open door to get you going on that path to more, so that when all is said and done, you will be able to walk through that very narrow gate with head held high and experience something that a lot of folks just aren't going to get. They think they've got it figured out, and they're going to be in for a bit of a shock. So let's go ahead and get started on this, and we'll move on to our first segment, and I will see you there. How can I put this so as not to offend the brethren of the penny loafer who walk amongst us? Everything you've been taught as sound doctrine is absolute garbage, and I'm going to prove it to you. And for those of you sitting there going, let me ask you a question. Do you believe that what Yeshua says is the truth? When he says something, is it the absolute truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Let's not sit there and think about an answer. Yay or nay? Let's go. Okay. Furthermore, do you believe that the accounts recorded in the book of Acts are true as well? Okay. Then I have one question for you, and one question alone. How come you aren't moving that mountain out there? Yeshua said that we would be capable of doing such things. Was he lying to us? Was he being hyperbolic? No. He was telling the truth, and that should tell us something about where we're at today as a faith. We are out of alignment. We need to work ourselves back into alignment. We do that by practicing, by operating from the reestablished baseline of this faith. That's how we do it. And so, in order for you to understand how things got so messed up, we got to get some history going in here. Yes, names will be named. Blame will be cast. It is what it is. You may not like it, but it's not my job for you to like it, nor is it the obligation of the Father or the Son for you to like it. The truth is the truth. Now, that said and understood, we have to take a close look at things and understand, above all else, the context grounded in the historical and cultural factors of Second Temple era Judea and Israel. And also, we're going to have to spend some time, I say have, it's not an obligation of suffering to me because I love it. But we're going to have to spend some time in the Old Testament as well so that you can understand and get the full picture of the entire situation. When you come into this and you accept this message and you enter into a period of both study and trial before you will be blessed, allowed through blessing to share it with others. You don't get to just learn this stuff and then go out into the world, a week later and start running your mouth. There's a testing and a tempering process that comes with this. Now, my teacher, he made a name for himself in many ways, but the thing that attracted me to him was that he did not hold back. He did not hesitate to put the foot down when it needed to be put down. And that really resonated with me, and I'm carrying that forward. Now, here's something that you need to consider. You see, he has a worldwide ministry. And when you have that obligation, you have to be a little more tactful than someone such as myself who is still in that absolutely glorious time where it's just the Father, the Son, the Word, and myself. That is the golden time. And what you do beyond that, what's given to you to be responsible for, those things will reveal themselves in time. But I intend to stay in this little zone right here for as long as I can, because this time of discovery and understanding is absolutely the best part of the whole thing. And I don't have to be 20 years down the road to see it and understand it for what it is. So, long story short, I don't have to put up with your crap for dollars. I'll say whatever I want, and if you don't want to hear it, the door's that way. Click, boom, we're gone, so on and so forth. Just get off my back. I've got my information and my assignment. So, if you want to ride, come and ride. If you don't, you don't. There we are. That's it. History is important. You're going to get some. Context is important. You're going to get a lot of it. Culture is everything in this. You are going to understand it. But take heart. When you finally do see these things, when you come into this, you're basically standing with your nose about 2 inches from God's mural. And the longer that you stay into this and continue to learn and continue to grow and continue to demonstrate your ability to be obedient, to be steadfast, as time goes on, you step further back from that mural and the larger picture begins to reveal itself. And when I tell you, it is so far beyond anything you are ever going to learn in any Western denominational or non-denominational or Roman house of worship. I am telling you the truth. So saith Yehovah. The big picture belongs to the servants and those who are obedient. Okay, so we want to take a quick little bit of time here to talk about some source material that's going to be advantageous to you both as we go along in our studies here and as material that you need to have at home just for your own reading and study time. Allow me to introduce you to the most important extra-biblical text on the face of the earth. This is the Chronological Gospels as written by Michael Rood. You need to get this. Let me say this again. You need to get this. This is the ministry of Messiah in chronological order. The timeline of everything that he does is absolutely crucial to understanding both why he is the Messiah and how he proves it time and time again, and most important of all, how it all ties in to the Old Testament prophecies as well. I will put a link up for this to Amazon, and I will use the ministry link, which is something that Amazon offers to, I think, ministries I know, but probably other 501c3s, where if you use that link and make a purchase coming in off of that link, then the ministry gets a little extra bread or savings for the costs of shipping the product out and so on and so forth. Chronological Gospels, boys and girls, get it. Okay. Number 2, dealing with the Old Testament. I have come at this point to enjoy immensely the Hebrew and English Tanakh. I love this, and here's why. Not only does it have the text in Hebrew right next to it, which I'm not fluent in. I tried and probably will try again to at least be able to understand and use the Hebrew alphabet. It's a very strange thing to learn a new language just by being in a situation where you're hearing it every day, but boy, learning it from an academic way by cracking the books and practicing and just memorization and all of that, it's a pretty difficult thing, at least for me. Now, I've been told that the hardest foreign language to master on the face of the earth is Japanese. I do not doubt that, but it seems to me that just being able to read Hebrew correctly and then to be able to vocalize it, pronounce it correctly, it's got to be up there. It's got to be a challenge. So in here in our Tanakh, because the Hebrew text is in there, instead of reading from left to right, you're going to be reading from right to left. And this is kind of cool, at least it is for me, because what it does is it forces me to kind of slow down a little bit. Now, you see, I'm at a point now where I've been through the reading cycle of Scripture so many times, I can't tell you how many times I've gone front to back. I can tell you I've gone through at least 6 different editions or translations, but I don't count anymore. There's a point when you're first starting out and you decide that you're going to read the Bible front to back, and it becomes kind of like a marathon. You want to be able just to say that I did it. And that after that, if you're smart, you'll do it again and again and again and again. And then it's not so much about how many times you've done it, but what you've retained each time that you come through. And this is important because, as I said before, things are revealed to you each time you go through this cycle. Something that you didn't see before, you're going to see on this particular round. And then when you go back around again, you're going to have that new understanding when you get to its connecting point, which reveals something else. So it's a constant reading cycle. It's a joy. And I am at the point where I can read no more than a couple of paragraphs at a time if I choose to, and be fully, completely satisfied in doing so. Now, admittedly, there are some things where you get into certain genealogies, and those are important for the establishment of bloodlines and generations as it relates to Yeshua as the Messiah. But, there are times when the construction list for the tent of meeting or the construction list for the temple, they it's not the most exciting thing in the world, and I also kind of feel the same way about Song of Solomon. It's a nice, beautiful, poetic writing about the love between a man and a woman, and that's fantastic and all. But, I can only read about Solomon's curly hair and pearly white teeth so many times before I'm just like, okay, I'm completely over this, But always we should be reading. And these are two great places to start. Now, the cool thing about that's not is that the books that were removed by Nicaea, namely First and Second Maccabees, are in here still. When you find out what the books of Maccabees are all about, it becomes very obvious why a council comprised of Romans and Greeks wanted to get rid of it. It's an adventure, man. It's an absolute adventure. And I'm going to guide you on it. Thank you. Who defines sin? That should be an easy question. God defines sin. Well, where do we find that definition? And where do we find those things that we are to do and not to do? In the commandments. The Torah is still very much in effect. It is the benchmark for our behavior, activity, lives, and values. The only thing that Yeshua negated was the system of livestock and animal sacrifice. He paid the ultimate price. He paid the death penalty that was incurred at Mount Sinai when Moses went up and was gone, something like 40 days and nights, I think, or he was up there for a while. And that's another thing. I will, from time to time, have to take a mental guess at things because in terms of mathematical numbers, things like that, that's not quite as important as what's actually happening. So if you're thinking about picking and poking at me for something like that, you're completely missing the point. Anywho, so Moses goes up, gets the first set of tablets, comes down. He meets up with Joshua about halfway down the mountain. Moses says, or Joshua, I think it was, says, "I hear the sound of war in the camp." Moses says, "That ain't war." So what had happened, as you well know or should know, the people coerced Aaron, of all people, to consecrate a golden calf, place that calf on a stone altar. Upon that stone altar are some pretty rough hieroglyphs of Apis and Hathor, the two Egyptian cow gods. It's still there. You can see it. Oh yeah, Mount Sinai. We got video of that. The altar, got video of that too. Pharaoh's chariots strung along the bottom of the Red Sea. Got video of that as well. And yeah, so that site, actually Mount Sinai, Saudi Arabia, it's been cordoned off, fenced off. It's a protected historical site by the royal family now under decree. And if I heard correctly, I think that they are getting ready to build their own sort of Dubai-like city adjacent to that historical site. So who knows what that's all about, but kind of interesting. So who defines sin? God defines sin. I don't define it. You don't define it. Your pastor doesn't define it. Humans can't define it. God defines it. So we need to study these commandments, and we need to understand the difference between the commandments of Yehovah, of God, and the traditions of men, namely the Pharisees and the Sadducees, and even, I think the Essenes were pretty straight on their setup. But as it stands today, there is one sect in Judaism that is strict Torah, no Mishnah, no Talmud, all killer, no filler. And that is the Karaite sect of Judaism, of which Dr. Nehemiah Gordon, who is, in my opinion at least, the most important Bible scholar on the planet currently, he not only does he get to go and examine, physically touch things like the Leningrad and Aleppo Codex, he has had a life that has been very much marked by the Father as being significant and him being a major part of all this. So I'm going to help you get introduced to him, and also to Dr. Miles Jones, who is a biblical archaeologist. He's got a lot of great stuff as well. But for our purposes of the commandment studies, and I can hear my teacher just groaning all the way from the gallery, we have here a couple of books. These are getting kind of hard to find. As you can see, this one's being held together by two rubber bands. This was in only slightly, marginally better shape when I got it off of Amazon, 9 years ago. And I still paid something like $35 for this thing. So I will do my best to try and get you a link to these so that you can get a copy of them. Again, my teacher, he's not down with this, and it's certainly understandable, but as I explained to him and as I now explain to you, the thing that makes these actually a good reference tool is that they clearly show us, they delineate the spots and the difference between this is the actual commandment and this is a reference from the Talmud or the Mishnah or Tractate 649.576. And I'll tell you something, if ever there were a people that love to debate endlessly, it would be the Jewish Bible scholars, the rabbis of today. And most of these guys, if not all of them, I think in modern day Israel, probably in America too at this point, but they're all law degree guys from, major universities. Hebrew University is where Nehemiah, actually, I think he attended, and now he actually teaches there as well. But all of the rabbis have, I don't know if it's a requirement or not, but they do have law degrees. And, they will debate things from sun up to sundown. It's just something that's a part of the culture that they're really into. And we've benefited from it in certain ways. And it's also been kind of a negative thing in certain ways. But we need to know what these commandments are. We need to know who they apply to, because some of these are for men, some are for women, some are national requirements, some are for the priest class. Some of them are temple-centric. They're historical. You can't keep them without a temple, of which we currently do not have one built. But for our purposes as followers of Yeshua, the commandments that are outside of the old animal sacrifice system, those are still very much in effect. And so we need to know what those are. And when you tune in to watch, we will go over at least one of those in great detail every time we do a show. I'm also in the process of putting together a spreadsheet that I'm going to disseminate to anyone who wants it once it's finally completed. It takes a while. There are, as we can see here on the title, 613 commandments. Some say 614, but whatever. Contrast that by 2.4 million laws on the books in the United States alone, and 613 commandments are not that much of a challenge. And with this spreadsheet that I've made, I've set it up in such a way that you can use the search or the filter function on it. It's been laid out in different categories, as well as the reference from Scripture, the book, chapter, verse, and who it applies to as well. And that's going to take a while to finish up. I tried to get a couple of 3 in, a couple of 4 in, I should say, per month. But I'm not trying to hurry through this. When I study these commandments, I want to take the time to really read what I'm reading, absorb what's there, and then once that's done, I take the basic information, document it onto the spreadsheet, save, and then come back around again maybe a week or 3 later. So that'll be a part of it, and I think you're going to find that very rewarding. Well, if you've managed to stay with me this far, thank you. Just a quick word about the schedule of the show frequency. I am still in the process of kind of building the factory of all this, so it's going to take a while before I'm able to increase the output to the point of being able to do a show every week or every 2 weeks. So I will send out notices letting you know that a new episode is coming up, and eventually, hopefully, we'll get to the point where things will be a little more consistent. I would say that probably the most active time for this show is going to be during the major chronological events of the ministry of Yeshua. That is, first and foremost, the reason that we're here. We've got to have that right. You have got to have that right. And that's why I'm here. I'm here to help, to guide, to show the way, and if necessary, ruffle some feathers as well. You know, I've been in this a while, and it's very, initially, it's sad to see how this faith was usurped and transformed into over 1,700 years now of just missing pieces at best, absolute garbage at worst. But we are now, and I couldn't tell you which one, but we are now in one of the last set of sevens of Daniel's 77 prophecies. So we need to get on this thing. You know, that narrow gate that Yeshua talks about is far more narrow than most people think. You know, he says that he hates the deeds of the Nicolaitans, and most people read that. They don't even know what a Nicolaitan is, but a Nicolaitan is a power structure. It is a pyramid. It is the big cheese at the top and all the people, the laity at the bottom. And we're not having any of that. And Yeshua was having none of that. When John and James' mother went to him and at John and James' behest and asked, would it be possible for my one son to be at your right hand and the other to be at your left hand? He shooed her out of the room, called them in, and dressed them down. You know, he let them know, we're not doing it like this. There's only one head of this thing, and you're looking at him. You're a servant, and your goal is to create other servants. You are not greater, you are not lesser. You simply are in possession of more knowledge than others at this time, and you're fortunate enough that you got to witness all of this. Blessed are those who didn't get to see all of this and yet still believe. These are things worth fighting for. These are things worth dying for. The richness of this faith is so far beyond anything that I ever saw in any church. Growing up as a member of a Baptist church where I went with my great-grandparents, who were incredibly important to me, and you're going to hear a lot about them. And in latter years, when I ended up in one of the new non-denominational churches, and I'll tell you something, I see now the lesson for what it was, because that church, the pastor of that church was as humble, as straightforward, and genuine as it gets. You know, he became ordained, and it was his goal to come back to his neighborhood that he grew up in and do his part to get people's lives turned around. You know, he was and still is very, very dedicated to that. It's his life. It's what he loves. It's his passion. Extremely dedicated. Very, very on the ball. And unfortunately, very, very wrong in a lot of ways. There have been other pastors who, upon learning these things, and I actually attended one here in town. There's one, at least one in New Mexico on the books, who made the transformation, made the change. He had a church, and as he was learning these things, he finally got to a point where he had to make the call. Am I going to continue feeding these people pablum, or am I going to do the right thing and invite everyone to come along? Well, he decided to do the right thing. And as a result, he lost his congregation. So, as I've said before, this is a faith of trials. This is a faith of determination, perseverance, longevity, putting those treasures in the heavenly storehouse. That's what this is all about. And when it's necessary, to fight. Absolutely to fight. The original introductory promo that I sent out for this, I told you that there are two major transitions happening in the Western Christian Church right now. One's positive, one's negative. The positive one is this information that I'm sharing with you is starting to spread. That's great. The negative is the house of charlatans is growing just as fast. And you know what I'm talking about. This whole thing of grace as a license has permeated this faith for far too long. And as a result of it, we're now getting into a situation where we've got a minister, a supposed minister, trying to dress down the president of the United States in a church, and this person is actually an activist and not a person of God. They're full of crap. And I'm not going to take that. And you shouldn't take it either. Now, I've got some pretty strong opinions, but I've also got a heart for people who have been excluded from this simply because of the way that they were born, and there's not a lot they can do about it, and trying to put them in some sort of program to mentally change them, to reprogram them, that's not going to do it either. There are a lot of questions that need to be answered, and we're going to ask those questions. And I'm going to be called a rebel by every person that is basically a religious politician. And you know what? I'm cool with that. I can live with it. In fact, I will revel in it. Because I'm telling you, there's only one way to go. It's either the truth or nothing at all. So keep that in mind. Please join me on this program. Learn something that can help you. And remember, Mr. Gabriels, Mr. Bowie, take us home. God bless.